Welcome. I'm here with Anthony Magnabosco. Anthony is the executive director of Street Epistemology International. Thanks for joining me, Anthony.
Thanks, Craig. Good to be here.
I thought, I know, and as I said, I know that you've said this many times, but people listening may not know what is street epistemology. If you could give that in a nutshell and maybe what its goals are, that would be
Mm,
interesting.
yeah,
Get us started.
that would be great to include. Definitely great to include the goals of street epistemology. But in a nutshell, street epistemology, or abbreviated SE, I'll probably slip and say SE because it's just easier. But it's a way of engaging with people about sensitive topics, topics that tend to really shut people down and tend to not cause people to reflect. It tends to topics that tend to cause people to become defensive and fight for their position. Street epistemology is a way of sort of working with your conversation partner to evaluate how they arrived at their conclusion. How do they reason to their conclusion to the point where they're so sure that they're correct? That's essentially what it is. And generally, we use things like active listening, asking questions, repeating back what we're hearing, and then um, never strawmanning the other person, but like literally trying to help the person reveal their best argument for their position, and then explore with them how they reason that it is a good justification for thinking that something is true.
Hmm.
That's essentially what SE is in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And as far as like why somebody would use it, well, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. One is just simply understanding your conversation partner. If you approach conversations in this way, you can really help yourself and your conversation partner better understand what it is they believe and why.
Hmm.
But the biggest bang for the buck, I think, is helping people reflect on the quality of their reasoning, which can meet the goal. There's an additional goal that a person could have is to perhaps persuade a person to take another look at their views or maybe even change their mind.
Hmm.
And you can use SE for that. And so there's different depths of of goals that you can have. You can have very surface level goals. I want to understand this person and why they're thinking this to the point, and you can go super deep. Like I want to explore their reasoning so that they can recognize that there's some faults there, and then either leave them alone to deal with it on their own, or continue working with them to maybe give them the facts of the situation if they're open to it. So ultimately, though, I think the goal of SE is to help people become more critical thinkers and more careful thinkers, so that we don't get too ahead of our skis when we're navigating life. Helping people build the most accurate map of reality so that they can navigate it without hurting themselves or other people.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think I would highlight listening is a big part of the practice, as well as asking questions. Now, you said it could be used for persuasion, and I've been thinking about this one because I remember from the town hall, you had a pop up town hall this past summer on the Discord server that I joined, and I just listened the whole time. And one of the conversations that came up was advocacy. And I guess I'll jump into that right now because advocacy is a form of persuasion. And I don't know if you're going to make a distinction between persuasion and advocacy. Uh, Perhaps there's a more passive form of persuasion or a more active form. I'm not sure. But I know the community is different opinions on this. Some people say street epistemology, and let's use SE for short for the rest of our conversation. SE is something that should not be used for advocacy, whereas others say that it should be. And perhaps we should define what we mean by advocacy too, in true SE fashion. Um,
Hmm.
what do we mean by that? Um, you seemed, if I remember correctly, did not have a mixed. You had a mixed opinion on that. Have you given that any thought anymore? What's your thoughts on SE as a tool for advocacy?
I'm torn on it a little bit,
Okay. Yeah.
honestly, because like SE originated in atheist circles to give people tools to help them have better engagements with religious people about their views.
Mm,
So like there was an advocacy component like at the very start,
mhm,
but there's such a utility to SE as well broadly for everyone, regardless of where you stand on that claim or any other claim. And uh, there's a potential risk that if SE is seen as advocating for your position so that people will adopt it,
mhm,
which you'll usually find with activists, it could prevent the broader adoption of the tools. But it would be foolish to pretend that people weren't using street epistemology for those purposes either.
mhm.
So what we're doing in the course, which we've been working on for the last 3 years now, and we're maybe just right around the halfway point, maybe it's slightly past, slightly past the halfway, is presenting the tools in a way that will appeal to broad adoption, but also recognize that there will be people that are using it to push certain narratives. And that's what module 14 is about. The last module in the course is called activism. And that's where we're going to talk about how you could potentially use street epistemology for those purposes.
Mm,
But generally, the way that we're teaching SE is that it's optimal to not be injecting your point of view into the conversation.
mhm.
When you do that, normally through a debate, it usually results in a closed-minded person. And they're becoming defensive and guarded, and now they're giving reasons that they think you'll find convincing, and they are even the reasons why they believe this thing.
Mhm.
So there's a flavor that permeates SE culture of like not messaging too much when you're doing SE.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like almost like a default. Like you just kind of put that in the back pocket. It's not about what you believe, and it's about exploring how this person's reasoning about things.
That's the
Um, but that's not realistic. Like many people are motivated to engage in these conversations because they think the person is wrong, and because they want to correct them. It's usually coming from a place of it's usually coming from a good place.
mhm.
Usually, people think that they're right. I think that you're wrong. I want to engage in questions to help you realize this.
Yeah, that has been the challenge for me when I practice it, because when I'm sort of trying to get at the reasoning, uh, it's suddenly okay. I know this fact over here, or I know this thing, and then it's like, let me convey. Oh no, that's not how we do this.
Good. But that tendency to want to correct people, give them facts, it's something that we naturally do. I don't know if humans naturally do it, or if that's just a cultural thing.
Hmm.
There probably are some cultures that don't do that, where just out of respect, maybe they just nod to get along. I
Yeah,
don't know that kind of stuff, but
it's hard to say. Is that
yeah,
cultural, or is it uh, a more just a mode of way humans behave? It's hard to say. Uh,
I think most people just think that they adhere to the information deficit model.
mhm,
You ever hear that? The idea that my conversation partner is just missing this piece of information, and all I need to do is bring and make them aware of this, and then they'll change their mind.
okay.
And even in SE, we don't do that. Like, unless the person's ready for it.
Hmm.
SE is so good about not only exploring how a person reasoned to their conclusion, but figuring out what kind of questions they're ready for, or what kind of information they're ready for. You may find I'm talking to a person and they're ready to get some facts that show that they're mistaken on this.
Hmm.
But that's generally not the case. I wouldn't start with that. Don't start with that assumption. Start with the assumption that they're very guarded, very closed, and you have to be delicate in how you engage with a person. And then you can, you know,
Is there a
broaden out or narrow down.
is there a place for it in the method anywhere to be able to bring that in?
I think so. Yeah. Yes, there is. And
What does that look like?
we're actually working well, it's normally We don't do that, but if you have really strong rapport with a person and you think that, you know what, I think they can handle my view on this, I'm going to reveal it to them, you can certainly do that. And there are ways that you can reveal your position that aren't confrontational. Um, but even sometimes there are beliefs that if you reveal your position on it, uh, they may become quite upset, and they may even know your position on it to begin with.
Yeah.
But generally, my advice would be like wait until somebody asks you what you think.
Mhm.
That would be my advice, and then by all means, tell them what you think. You said you watched a few of my videos. You may have noticed in a couple of them that people would often ask me what I thought about their claim.
Mhm.
And then I might say something like, well, I'm interviewing you and this isn't about me. Or I'll answer that at the end of this interview if that's okay. That type of stuff where I would demur and not give it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But then if you watch some of the later videos, when people ask me my view, I would say, no, I don't believe that.
Mhm.
So like there's been an evolution of it. Like I think maybe we started off by being a little bit too um, protective of our own views when that could be seen by observers, especially if they know that you don't believe what this person that you're interviewing. It could seem as like being disingenuous or you're hiding something or inauthentic.
Mhm.
So our advice these days is always be prepared to share your views. In fact, we have module 11 in our course is called sharing your views.
Mhm.
So we plan on having a whole module about how to do this and some of the things to keep in mind that are worth keeping in mind before you actually do it.
Yeah. I think I'll put a link in the description to the course for people that are interested.
That would be great. Yeah, navigatingbeliefs.com. It's a free course, and we've got modules 1 through 6. We're going to be releasing modules 7, 8, and 9 probably before the end of this year,
Mhm.
and then 10 through 14 hopefully before the end of 2025.
I have not gone through it yet, but I've been wanting to, and I was thinking in the summer when I have more time that I
Oh
would
yeah, I
go
hope so.
do a run from beginning to end in it in the summer.
That would be great.
Since you mentioned your videos, I did watch a few of them. I would say I probably watched more of your talks than I did your videos, but some of the videos were really stood out to me. I'm going to talk about one, which was you referenced in your talk. It was your conversation with Maritza about the spirits are real claim. I don't know if you remember that, but
How could I forget it?
in the video, because you shared it in a talk too. In the video, because I study and research communication, my approach to this is sort of understanding it through a communication practice. So my question is in that frame. So the use of analogies are often appear to me in your videos to be effective tool for stimulating critical self-reflection. So in this video, she claims that spirits are real. She provides some evidence from her personal experience of observing and hearing sounds of walking around. And then you eventually get to the point where you said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, um, could I be raised in a household that thinks leprechauns are real and wake and to hear footsteps around the house, and I would be justified to think that was true, which got her to think. So this is actually, I would categorize this as an analogy, right? So this is her experience that she's interpreting that through that it's spirits, but you take something which, interestingly, that is not attached to her identity, right? So the first one is that it's attached to her identity, but you make this analogy to leprechauns that is not attached to her identity, then that helps break her free to think more about this. And so there's a couple dimensions to this. This sort of the workings of the analogy, I think, was effective in that case. I think it also was a prerequisite condition that it seemed like Maritza had intellectual humility. So she's willing to change her mind, to be open. She's not dogmatic, in other words. And if that
Yeah,
wasn't a condition, this probably would not have worked. But
correct.
given this has worked, what I want to ask you is what sort of communication strategies, however you want to call them, what sort of techniques, whether you have the name for them or not, do you seem to have been most effective for you in addition to analogies? Because at least this I looked like it worked pretty well. And with the goal of
Mhm.
critical self-reflection in mind. What do you think has worked best for you if you were to reflect over the years of having done it?
Yeah, what you're calling an analogy, and it is an analogy. The term that we would use in SE land would be something like an outsider test.
Okay.
And an outsider test, and essentially is what I did there was, if somebody is using your same reasoning but arriving at a different conclusion,
Mm,
a conclusion that you think might be ridiculous,
mm,
like leprechauns, and that was risky for a couple of reasons. Um, and we can get into that if you want. But I mean, she could have thought that maybe I was demeaning her belief by
yeah.
comparing it to
Yeah.
leprechaun, or maybe she actually thought leprechauns were real too.
Hmm.
You know, so I was kind of it was a little bit risky there. But mechanically, I'm asking her to consider the reasoning that brought her to her conclusion, and we're applying that reasoning to a different person that arrived at a different conclusion that she doesn't think is true. So there's not only the outsider test, but there's also the honest epistemic humility of considering that other person who's arriving at this other conclusion that isn't right, and then overlaying that to her own reasoning. And she's doing this all in her mind. I'm not doing this with, like, I'm asking her questions and proposing things so that she'll do this. And she did it. And she recognized that it wasn't good evidence. I think it was like a quote. I
Hmm.
guess it's not good evidence to be this sure that this thing is true.
Yeah.
If anybody can use that to arrive at a conclusion. So that is an important technique. Another one might be probing the limits.
Mm,
Yeah, how far are you willing to go with this? Like, you do you believe everything? Because she believes in spirits, if I remember right, because her grandmother told her.
hmm.
So a good question might be like, if your grandmother told you that the moon was made of cheese, would you believe that too? Like,
Oh, I
there
see.
must be some limitation, right? So now we're talking about not her conclusion that spirits are real, but the process by which she's so confident that spirits are real. And in this case, it happened to be third party testimony. My grandma told me this. She loves me. She bakes me food. My grandmother would never steer me wrong,
Hmm.
right? So she's putting overconfidence into these statements by this loved one in her family.
Yeah.
And that was what was driving her confidence in the existence of these spirits. So I guess that was what might be another technique.
And that has
And there's
worked.
other ones too. We're identifying these specific techniques depending on the type of issue or error you're encountering with regards to the reasoning.
Hmm.
You had talked about, like, if Maritza was very dogmatic, that question probably never would have probably never would have been entertained the idea that she was mistaken about spirits being real if she was dogmatically certain that she was right.
Yes. Yes.
And this is a common mistake that a lot of people getting exposed to street epistemology will do is they'll just start asking an outsider test, and they haven't even considered if the person's open-minded
Hmm.
on this topic.
Hmm.
So there's certain things you have to do to sort of bring yourself to the point where you could ask the questions that help a person really critically reflect. And sometimes there are bigger issues like dogmatism or relativism.
Hmm.
This idea that, well, and everyone can have their own truth. The person that hears the footsteps and concludes that leprechauns are real, they're right because they believe it or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's another issue that can get in the way of that type of
Yeah.
thinking.
So so you had outsider tests. That's interesting. You have names for the strategies, and the little bit that I've practiced too. I know that um, I'm missing a lot of things that I need to add to my repertoire in terms of the different types of questions that I could ask. Because when I was sitting and doing, I had some good results with some students working with some one on ones. And I sometimes get stuck because it's like, okay, what do I ask now? because as we talked about, you want to convey information, and you got to help them. It's a facilitation process, and that's interesting about it. And so this might connect to one of the other questions that I wanted to ask you, because in many of your interviews, you have contrasted SE with debate to show that this is very different than debate. And I've been thinking about that a bit too, because um, in the study of communication, we have sometimes what's called the 4 Ds. There's debate, deliberation, discussion, and dialogue. And all of these have their own literature base except discussion. Discussion is just a more informal version of deliberation. But let me just put it in perspective, because it seems like I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. I'm wondering if SE fits into this framework because it seems very different. It's someplace. So debate would be a mode of communication where your goal is to win, right? So you're trying to conquer and defeat the other person. Your ideas prevail. Deliberation, the goal is to arrive at the best possible decision or the best possible solution. And so you engage in conversation and maybe arguments back and forth. You're not trying to understand the reasoning for getting there, but you are. This is what people on board meetings might do when they're working for a company, trying to figure out what the best decision is. This is ideally what we should be doing for a strong democracy, deliberating. So the goal being to arrive at the best possible decision. We weigh our evidence, willing to change our minds. But that's not what's happening in SE, because you're not messaging back any of your own positions. And discussion is just more an informal version of deliberation. It would, with its goal being to explore. You could arrive at a decision, but it's not a prerequisite. We're just trying to explore things, have arguments, hash it out. And then finally, the last one of the 4 is dialogue. And dialogue is robustly talked about in the literature. You have like Martin Buber and others. There's even a physicist, David Bohm, who writes about it with different perspectives. But generally, the goal in dialogue is to achieve mutual understanding. And the people that often do this, they find very polarized, sometimes even dogmatic people. And they put them down in a room with each other, like interreligious dialogues. And the only goal is for those people to walk away from that room with better understanding of the other people, not to change their mind. And oftentimes they have this, people report this, like spiritual experiences, whatever that might mean, leaving that. And it's just because they're not trying to force themselves on anyone. They're just, usually storytelling is a big part of it. They come and tell their story, they listen. There's a facilitator that makes sure nobody argues against. And to the best of my ability, if SE fits in here anywhere, it seems like it would fit somewhere between discussion and dialogue. But I don't know. And I think it would be important to pen down, what is its goal? Would it be fair to say the goal of SE is to get the interviewee to engage in critical self-reflection? Or would it be
The primary goal of street epistemology, the primary goal of SE is to help people critically reflect on the quality of their reasoning for thinking that some claim is true.
Yeah.
That is the primary goal. But there are other goals of SE. We kind of talked about it at the beginning, but like understanding is a goal that you should have when you're doing SE. Encouraging others to critically reflect on the quality of their reasoning is a should goal. But there are additional goals that you could have when you're doing SE, like persuading others to change their mind, improving your critical thinking skills. Maybe you want to maintain or grow a relationship, or maybe even have the broader goal of wanting to make the world more rational. So yeah, you could have those goals. But I think that's interesting. So what? Go ahead and finish your thought. Did you want to?
Well, that was pretty much it. This sort of this paradigm of or this framework, I should say, of because I'm always looking for tools to put my students in conversation across their differences. And I think this is a tool that does that. So
Hell yeah, it is.
I do debates, I do deliberations, and I do fireside conversations, and I do SE. Um, so I haven't really felt the need to do dialogues because I don't generally have dogmatic people in my class. But that is dialogues are often reserved for people that are really entrenched in their views to help loosen that up. Like if I can use a metaphor to loosen the phlegm up, if you will, and
Yeah.
before you get to any of the other sort of modes of trying to make a decision. But I just thought I'd throw that out there and see, you know, what you think in regard to these, because you've contrasted it with debate. What about other modes of communication?
Yeah. Well, deliberation, I was making a note, like, um, yes, in deliberation, maybe you want to try to arrive at the best decision. But like in therapy, like the best decision might be something that's not actually true. You know, the best decision for me
Yeah.
is to build the plant over there because it's close, less of a, it's less distance for me to get to work or
Mhm.
something. But as far as like where my market is, it's in a completely different area, right? So like, um, best decision isn't often grounded in reality. Whereas like in an SE conversation, we want to know how you concluded to whatever degree of confidence you've stated that your claim is true.
Mhm.
How did you determine that that's the case? So we're usually interested in empirical, descriptive claims about reality.
Mhm.
Although, but you don't have to use it for that. Like you can absolutely explore somebody's personal preference. Um, you can absolutely do that. And as far as like dialogue, yes, mutual understanding is great. You mentioned Braver Angels. It seems like that's all they do is like getting two people to better understand the other side. Well, that's nice. It's a good starting point, but where's the beef?
Yeah.
And in fact, I've got a meeting with them tomorrow on Friday.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Me and yeah, and I'm aware of them, and we've been messaging on Twitter and stuff. But we're finally kind of, there's nothing formal going on,
Mhm.
but we're talking to each other. And my advice to them would be like, in fact, I think I even tweeted something to them like, "This is great that you're achieving understanding of the other side, but who's actually right?
Mhm.
Like, isn't that the more important question?"
Yeah.
And I think we do a real disservice by ending at understanding. Like,
Mhm.
understanding is great, and it's good for finding common ground and building from. But the risk that you face when you ask questions simply to understand is you're allowing a person to verbalize their beliefs and everything. You could actually be reinforcing their own confidence in their conclusion because they did it so eloquently and you were so accepting of what they had to say, and now they're patting themselves on the back because they've been able to help you understand how they see things, and they may interpret that as being correct.
Mhm.
The other thing is you could be platforming really bad ideas. This is a common complaint that I see about spectrum street epistemology in
Oh,
particular,
really?
is that yeah, is that you're bringing all these great, all these great topics up and your platform, and they're controversial topics.
Mhm.
But if you don't see the person who's making these claims get adequately challenged with questions, and you're strictly asking questions to understand, well, you could be promoting really horrible, unjustifiable ideas, and that's not helpful either. So while you can use SE to understand, the most amazing thing about SE is how you're helping people reevaluate how they reason to their conclusion and then assess what this means for my confidence in the truth of it. So I can I can navigate reality a little bit better because I'm not as overconfident in something that might not be true. All right? Or I've increased my confidence now in something because I'm even more sure that it's true. This is the holy grail of like humanity, isn't it? Like trying to figure out the best way to navigate the world so that we're making less mistakes and we're increasing human flourishing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's about, I guess, all I have to say about those those other options. And the debate, like you said, debate, and we present this in the course. Debate is usually about winning and making your point and convincing people who may not be well versed on it or who are on your side that you're right, so that you can feel good and that type of stuff. Often at the expense of the truth of it. Like people's egos get wrapped up into debate,
Hmm.
and then there's monetary interests as well behind all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
Hmm.
I think SE, when you contrast, I won't go. I mean, those approaches have their place, but SE is my go-to.
Yeah.
That will be the tool that I will use, whether you're trying to sell me something at my front door, or the Uber driver makes a claim, or as I'm navigating reality, that's the gate agent or the person on the plane as I was
Mhm.
flying. You don't have to go full, full SE where you're, doing that step by step by step, but it's how did you determine that that's true?
Yeah.
That is the primary driver of SE conversation.
Hmm.
At least I think it should be.
I have, that makes me think of a question I have for you that might be unusual. As far as I know, nobody's asked you this, but I've been thinking about it because of conversations I've had with people that are close to me that have struggled um, with the way that we were raised, being indoctrinated in certain beliefs, trying to become free of that indoctrination. And I wonder to what extent you probably don't, nobody thinks of it this way necessarily, but I got to thinking, to what extent is SE a healing tool? Have you ever thought about that as an instrument of healing?
I do. It's been an instrument of healing for me personally. When I first started off engaging with people about religious beliefs, I was debating with them and arguing and ridiculing.
Mm,
And then looking at the fallout of that, like, people not wanting to talk to me anymore, because I was such a jerk. And this approach, I can have hundreds of conversations on that same topic now using a different approach, and it's a completely different outcome where I don't feel terrible afterwards, and they love it. Like they want to talk
yeah,
more or ask me where I stand on my claim, or wow, you've really given me something to think about. Like that's a total game changer.
yeah,
But yeah, as far as healing, like um healing, that's a really interesting angle. Like I'm trying to think of the healing aspect from a person on the receiving end of the questions.
hmm.
It probably doesn't feel like healing in the moment, because
For sure. Yeah.
usually no, it's very like it's upset. It's like it could be mentally upsetting
Hmm.
to recognize I've got two competing beliefs here now.
Yes.
The belief that I had when I first talked to this dude, and then like this now these questions that are like asking, causing me to reflect on this conclusion now, and that is that feeling of cognitive dissonance is an unpleasant feeling for a lot of people.
Hmm.
Um, but when you come to grips with it, that's when the healing can begin, I suppose. Like, okay, you know, until I can find a better reason for thinking that this is true, maybe I shouldn't be so sure that it is. So if I was going to be asked my level of confidence now, I wouldn't say 90%. I'd probably say more like maybe 50% or something.
Hmm.
Like, but that recognition, even though it might be painful, and it requires some resiliency, like you mentioned, Maritza, she was a resilient conversation partner.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you could see sort of the dejection in her face when she recognized, oh, I don't have a good reason for thinking this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard as a questioner to observe, right? Because like I'm a compassionate humanist. I want to help this poor person. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but that feeling of uncomfortability, that feeling of uncertainty, is seemingly necessary in order to help a person critically reflect on their conclusions and then grow from it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I see that for sure. Um, Thinking about the sort of pull a thread out of the cognitive dissonance that you mentioned. I've also been thinking about the biases that we have. And I wonder because in some of the videos that you do, I obviously see confirmation bias crop up. And this is something we're all subject to if we're going to have any intellectual humility. this is not something, it's built into us, right? As well as all the other cognitive biases like availability bias, cognitive dissonance, etc. But I was curious because the particular interaction I have in mind, I think you had a conversation with two Mormons that got a lot of engagement. It was about 5 years ago, and they had said that there was something in the Book of Mormon that they had to do, and they would test it, but they had to start with the assumption, which is a clear indication
Yeah.
they're engaging in confirmation bias, right? So we're going to start with the belief, and then we're going to go find the evidence to prove that it's true. And insofar as you have encountered people that have emerged this confirmation bias, it's a difficult, if it's a difficult one, I don't know the best techniques, but if you were to reflect on that a bit, what do you think are some of the better techniques that might come out of SE to engage the emergence of confirmation bias,
Hmm.
or when people begin with assumptions, if I can put it more colloquially?
Yeah. One approach or technique that I've found can be really useful is to um, in a way you're acknowledging that there's some bias going on, but you're not directly calling it out. So
Hmm.
like the example that's coming to my mind is a young Earth creationist who had this really high standard for believing that evolution was true, and yet when we contrasted it to his standard for accepting uh, God did it, it was very low. Like he wanted to meet with experts in the field that were in evolution, and they'd have to spend a whole semester with him, and then maybe he would become convinced of it. All right. But when we explored, what was the rigor needed to get to his current conclusion, it was different. So helping a person recognize that they have two different standards, one standard for believing it and another standard for not believing it. And I think that it's that recognition that I've got two standards here for this same claim. And then it's just a matter of like exploring the problems that could happen if you do that. So we're not attacking the belief, and I'm not telling him he's stupid for believing in for not believing in evolution or whatever. Or I'm not giving him facts that show that evolution is right. Like we're exploring what he himself would need to see in order to accept it, and then recognizing himself that he had this discrepancy in standards. And we're not even really talking about biases or informal fallacies or formal fallacy. Like we can get really wrapped up in the mistakes that we're making, but they're almost not as important as just like talking with a person and helping them recognize they're making some kind of error.
Yeah.
And then if by that point they're usually really engaged and they want to try to figure it out, and you can ask questions that help reveal that maybe there are two different standards going on here.
Yeah, I think I'll admit one of the challenges for me when being an educator, we might read some stuff in a class and then develop a conceptual vocabulary, and then we can use that vocabulary. But you can't have that expectation with strangers on the street, right? That they have that. So
Yeah.
finding an alternative vocabulary is sometimes useful, or not even necessarily needing a vocabulary, but just getting the right questions, that help, that enact, that dig at the mechanism of how they're thinking, if you will. And there, I guess, that's the challenge in seeing the work that you and others do in the community. Is fascinating to me on that regard.
It's delicate, and it's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people, and I don't think it even came naturally to myself to like recognize, I think I'm seeing a problem here in their reasoning, but I'm not going to like tell them. I'm going to ask them questions and see if there really is an issue here, and if there is, then maybe ask a question that might cause them to reflect on this issue, this potential issue that's at play here. And a lot of people don't naturally do that, but you can train yourself to do it. If you start with curiosity, I
Mhm.
think that that's a really great first step forward.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely curious, like authentically. I really want to understand how you concluded that this is true.
Yeah.
Can we walk through your reasoning together? If you approach things like that, that's great.
I can see that in the videos too. That's you can see the authenticity and the curiosity, uh, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
Do you have any? So I mentioned a few of the videos that I watched, but beyond those, because you have a lot, your catalog, I feel like if I were to watch everything, I would probably have the feeling I've reached the end of the internet. Because there's that many videos. Uh,
There's an audio version too on the Street Epistemology
oh,
podcast. You
is
can
there?
listen to them
Okay.
if you want something a little bit more mobile, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
can listen to in the
yeah.
car when I go on my longer drives.
I mean, the early stuff, I don't know. I might skip it.
Mm.
If you wanted to see like the evolution of SE, that it might be a fun exercise, but maybe start at episode 100 and go forward, maybe.
Well, what I was going to ask you is what is one or more of your most memorable interactions, aside from the ones that we perhaps talked about? Which ones, you know, people would ask you, memorable interactions, which ones come to mind for you? You could take your time.
There's so many. The one with Luann comes to mind. It was this woman on a trail. I think she had like a New Jersey accent or something. Maybe she was visiting Texas. I don't
Mm.
know. She was visiting. I don't know. I interviewed her and she was religious, and we didn't really talk as much about her why she thought her God was real. It was more about her lamenting the fact that her two kids and husband didn't believe.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of stands out in my mind. There was another one with a woman. Delmy was her name. Delmie, I think. You search for that. And we were talking about karma, and it wasn't a typical conversation. She didn't want to believe it. She was encouraging me to ask her questions so that she would stop believing in it because it was causing her trauma
Oh, wow.
to think that she was being penalized for something that she did in the past.
Mm.
Very strange. That was just a strange conversation, but it kind of like opened my eyes of, um, wow, there are some beliefs that people uh, struggle with
Mhm.
and wish that they didn't have. That was an eye opener. I mean, there's the infamous one of the older guy on the campus. This was an early one. What was his name? Paul.
Why is that
Where
one
we chatted for
memorable?
5. Well, it's memorable because at the end of it, we're talking about religion, and he was giving all the typical religious apologist answers of, they found chariot wheels under the bottom of the Red Sea, and all that. That's why this
Mm.
is true. And it ended with him sort of walking away in a huff, looking over his shoulder and saying, "I hope that you find the truth, the real truth."
Mm.
So that was kind of fun to see that. There was another talk with a guy named Austin about, again, he was on campus promoting religion for one of the on-campus ministry groups, and I had two or three conversations with him,
Was he a missionary?
and we ended kind of like a missionary. I think he was kind of paid by one of these groups to like bring students from the college to bring them to church or something.
Okay. Yeah.
But and we had started emailing each other, and he had mentioned that on the last talk that we had, it really had affected him profoundly to the point where he started breaking down and crying in the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, it's you're kind of when you're dealing with people's deeply held beliefs, you're dealing with the person as they see themselves.
Yeah.
People view themselves through the lens of the beliefs that they hold. So when you question the person's deeply held beliefs, even though in SE we're very conscious of like we're more interested in the methodology that you use to conclude that your belief is true,
Mhm.
but there's implications for the belief that you hold,
Mhm.
and that is still tied to your identity. So a lot of these beliefs can be you have to be extremely delicate, and what you think might just be a throwaway question because you've asked it 100 times could be devastating to somebody who's never considered it before.
Yeah.
Because now the implications are, shit, if this isn't real, then like I'm married to somebody who thinks, she married me because we believe this. And
Hmm.
the Mormon couple comes to mind as well. There was a man and woman who were Mormons on the trail, and the husband, I don't even know if they were married, but the husband was like in preach mode. He wanted to like share the good news of the LDS church. And then the woman was much more considering of the questions that I was asking and like thinking about it. So there was this dichotomy of a really reflective person contrasted to a very open, like closed-minded and certain person right next to her. And that dichotomy was really fascinating to see too. And it made me think, shit, if I had talked to either of them individually, how different the conversation would have gone.
Yeah. That must have been a challenging dynamic.
It's harder. Well, it's harder with two people,
Yeah.
even if they believe the same thing. It, and this kind of leads me to like spectrum. I don't know how you can achieve critical reflection if you're not having a one-on-one, like deep talk about how this person is reasoning.
Hmm.
And I see a lot of superficial questions and resetting of things. And I don't know. I'm kind of old school. Like
Yeah.
one person, one-on-one, and it could be back and forth. It's not just me asking you questions, and you're my victim that I'm here to like trap and get you to see how wrong you are. Like back and forth conversation where we're exploring how we're both reasoning to our conclusions about this claim
Hmm.
seems to be optimal.
Yeah. Uh, I've had mixed results with the spectrum, but let me tell you about a format that I piloted this year. I just came up with it on the spot. I don't know if it's going to get any traction. And I'll definitely say if anyone watches the video, it could have gone better because in the hands of a more experienced street epistemologist that knows the outsider test and all these other things that um, I know the basics of, establish a claim, establish the confidence in the claim, what are the reasons for the claim, engage in disconfirmation practices, under what conditions would this be false, what evidence would you need to see, questions like this. But I think there's a lot of other questions that I don't have built into my repertoire yet that would be very useful to me. But here's essentially how it went. I laid out mats on the ground, and I had students pick the claim. Let me think what the claim was. I think their claim they came up with was hard work beats talent was the claim they came up with. And so they arrayed themselves, and then I just picked one across the spectrum of like I think there was 4 or 5 students, and they were across on different mats. Then we just sat down at a table and ignored the mats. Just sat down at a
Oh,
round table, and I went one by
okay.
one around the table, like, what is your reasons for this? And just sort of at this point, where they stood didn't matter anymore. But
Yeah.
it was only just to sort of get a diversity at the table. But I also one thing that you don't get with a one-on-one that sort of emerged too is I got people to share their reasons with others and see how they responded to that as well. So I don't know if it's a promising format or not, but it was something interesting to try, the
I like
roundtable
it.
format. But I will say this: I think it went better for me than the actual spectrum, the traditional like mat spectrum.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
like that. Go ahead.
and I was just going to add that I also did a one-on-one when I had this too, and the one-on-one I think went better than all of it. So that might be again, this is my personal experience, so it could, a lot of people are saying that the one-on-ones work, but if our goal is to engage in critical self-reflection, it does seem to be one-on-one is more productive in that regard. Yeah, what's your
Hmm.
thoughts on that?
Well, yes, I do think a one-on-one, if it's just the two of you and there's no cameras, like, you're just having your conversation. it could be a little bit more tricky if now it's you doing a one-on-one with a student in front of the class with other people listening and laughing
Yes, yeah,
and
yeah.
on their phones and yeah, right. Like you have to consider the dynamics of the situation that you're in. I like the idea of you starting off on the spots, like the arc of strongly agree to strongly disagree,
Hmm.
and then sitting down to discuss it because I think that's good because the sense that I get maybe is that because you've gamified it, now there's winners and losers, and maybe like you have to defend the position that you're on as opposed to really thinking about why that you're there.
Hmm.
And by sitting down, you're stepping away from it. And yeah, I think might be a fun exercise
What's that?
is after you do the sit down, ask the people to go back and stand on the lines and
Oh,
ask the
yeah,
same question
yeah,
because I wonder if there would be some shifting and make a note of where they were because they'll probably forget where they were.
yeah.
But have them stand back up there because I'd like to see if there was any shifts in confidence in any of the direction of any of the participants.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
Let me see what else I got for you here.
Mhm.
So, we've talked about a little bit about SC, my experience with it, your experience with it. Um, oh, here's one. I like to save my deep questions, deep philosophical questions for last. Get a build up to it. So, so if you need
It's
some,
not about free will, is it?
no, it's not about free will.
Oh, thank goodness.
Although I have been seeing a lot of conversation about that, and I'm not sure where I stand on it. But
Mm.
again, because you know, communication is something I pay attention to as a researcher, and it's sort of like the foundation of human relationships. I wonder, what has the practice of SE taught you about being a human? I know that's a deep question.
Oh boy.
Or human
Okay.
relationships. What has it taught you about being human, or about
Yeah.
the way we maintain and hold human relationships?
Oh, how we hold relationships? Okay. I don't know if I've really given much thought to that. Like, I mean, it seems like belonging to a tribe supersedes a lot of
Mm,
people's desire to have true beliefs.
hmm. Yes.
And they don't even most people don't even realize that they're doing this, but we'll become and I'm in that same boat. Um, there are views that I have that I'm unwilling to question probably because I recognize at a subconscious level that it's threatening to my belonging in a tribe or my marriage might be at stake if I ask this question or the reality of being alone probably drives a lot of people's confidence in their beliefs
Hmm.
might be the thing that I'd say. Um, did you ever see The Matrix where like Neo slows down? I think it's in the first one. Did you ever watch The Matrix?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's this moment, I forget which movie it is, but like I think it's the first movie. But like Neo can like see the code
Yep. Yep.
of the people coming at him and he can kind of stop time. Like you see the inner workings of the program.
Yep.
And with SE, I feel like you see the inner workings of the human condition.
Mm.
And that could be a pretty like
You see the
oh,
code, metaphorically speaking.
you see the code. You see the code driving everything that's happening when it comes to human beings.
Hmm.
And that code is very flawed. That's driving us.
Yeah.
And it's really scary to think about how many people are running code that are driving them to behave and they're so convinced that they're right and it's affecting themselves and other people. So in a way it's kind of neat. It's like, gosh, I understand what's happening in people's brains now when it comes to these beliefs and this idea of belonging and the motivations behind believing things to high degrees of confidence. Like I get that. And the motivations to becoming uncomfortable, like we talked about cognitive dissonance and that feeling of uncomfortability. We we are creatures that try to avoid pain. I mean, that's what morality is, I think, in a nutshell, right? Like, we've evolved to avoid pain stimuli, and that's baked into how we reason about things. But once you recognize that as a questioner, you can begin to look for that. But then also, like, even when you're alone and sitting in the hot tub and it's midnight and you're pondering the world, you're like, this has serious implications for how humanity navigates the world and how it's going to flourish or fail. And it can be kind of a scary thought too.
Mhm.
So it's like you peel back the covers on like what it means to be a human, and then once you see that, it could be a little upsetting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, you know, the point about tribalism stands out to me because it's something that I really have been laser focused on for, I would say, probably the last 10 years. In the United States, at least, and around the world, we have an increase in polarization that we can, in part, see as a byproduct of our sort of tribalism. There's a lot of it's complex. There's a lot of things that are affecting this, but I think the way we engage in humanizing and dehumanizing practices, right? Creating outgroups, uh, and our tribe, my tribe versus their tribe, sort of thing, and then the beliefs that get wrapped up in, uh, you know, each tribe has their totem or their hero, and that's who they rally around. The totem they rally around, metaphorically speaking, here, of course, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it has it connects to this because of the way and how we believe. How do we believe what we believe? How we've come to accept what is true, because from that has all sorts of implications for the way we behave in the world. And I think that's one of the things I see practitioners stress, like not just an inconsequential belief, but a belief that would affect the way you behave in the world. Do you think that sounds an accurate description?
Absolutely. That the strength of SE is in its ability to explore the big beliefs, the beliefs that motivate us to behave and act out in the world
Mm-hmm.
because we're so sure that they're true. And it's our, I guess, hypothesis that as we're writing this course, for example, that if a person realizes that maybe I'm a little bit overconfident in this conclusion, they'll ease off of their feeling of confidence, and that in turn will ease off of their likelihood to interact with the world with that perception in mind. So maybe they were planning to go to that protest, but maybe now I'm not going to go because I'm still going to write that check, but I'm not going to go to that protest anymore. Like there may be a backing off of behavior
Mm-hmm.
when people realize that they're overconfident. So my gosh, why would you want to talk about the benign safe topics when you have this tool that could be used for the biggest ones that cause us to behave in the world?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the beauty of SE, I think, is that it allows you to have those conversations on those sensitive topics that result in action
Mm.
so that we could be more responsible as we're navigating around.
Mm. If I could shift the topic just a little bit here, um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm also thinking about, SE is a tool that is useful, would be useful in more people's hands, I think, which is why I hope to, you know, share this with my students as well as my colleagues. Um, but one thing I noticed, and we're discussing this right now with my students, is, I mean, let me put it as a sort of an axiom with online content that enrages, engages, and SE doesn't do that. So, and I think you've talked about this in another video of, it's not clickbaitable as much as, say, like Jubilee, that has the surrounded
Mm-hmm.
formats that get people fired up and they're all get emotional sort of thing, which I think is their, I've been sort of critical of their surrounded format um, for that reason. It doesn't set people up for good faith conversations across their differences. And even though SE is not really, the interviewer is not engaging for the most part in their own messaging, um, there is the opportunity to help the listener explore through their own. You're giving them a guided tour through their own beliefs and their own reasoning. So I guess my question, you may not have an answer for this, but in light of this sort of observation that, how do you get attention uh, in the world that's filled with noise? How do you elevate SE as a method in this noisy environment that appeals to our emotions and our baser selves? I guess.
It's the biggest challenge that we're facing. The biggest challenge that we're facing in SE is a marketing one
Okay.
because the tools work. I mean, and we're going to scientifically test these to see contrasted to other approaches. But at least in my experience and in the experience of other practitioners, helping a person reflect on the quality of their reasoning could help them readjust their feeling of confidence and alter their behavior.
Mhm.
That's it in a nutshell. But you're absolutely right. Like it's not that unless you're interested in SE or you're frustrated with other approaches that weren't working. They're not. It's not that entertaining to be watching somebody like think about their thoughts.
Yeah.
But that's what we're trying to achieve when we're doing SE.
Mhm.
And Spectrum SE might be one way of trying to make that a little bit more entertaining because now you have more people on there and there's more ideas and there's movement. But I don't see the reflection happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, when I was uploading my videos, they were getting some views.
Mhm.
Mainly from non-believers were drawn to them. So like there is some value. Like people are interested in them in some way, but they're not as entertaining as a knockdown, drag out fight
Yeah.
or argument. And I don't know what to say about that, other than that just might be the nature. It might just be human nature that we're drawn to conflict, and we are repulsed by civility when it comes to online. But I don't know. I don't. That doesn't sit well with me because I find watching SE conversations really interesting.
Mhm.
It's fascinating to me to watch somebody use SE that results in a person thinking about their conclusion that they were so sure that they were right and there's no way that I could be mistaken on this. And all of a sudden they're thinking about it.
Mhm.
That is just gold to me. Like there's nothing more exciting to be participating in that or observing it.
Mhm.
But still, to get to that point, there's a lot of understanding and hand holding and rapport building, and you're kind of laying the groundwork. It's like this big long build up to this really important payoff. But if you don't, maybe people, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. Like maybe people don't see what's happening,
Mhm.
so they don't appreciate it, and then they're bored by it. But my guess is they're probably seeing it, and it's, oh yeah, that's cool, but it's not something that I could do, or well, it's not interesting to watch.
There's certainly people that are interested in it, but I think m- definitely the more dramatic sort of content attracts more people, if you will. And
Yeah.
maybe you just made me think. I'm thinking out loud like you. I'm wondering if it's our negativity bias. That bias that we have, that we're more attenuated and attentive to negative things, like the snake in the grass, because
Mhm.
that error is consequential, as opposed to the good thing is not. If I miss out on an opportunity, it's not as consequential, and so we have this negativity bias, where we're more attentive to negative things. and that could be one of the challenges of coming that. Maybe that's just the nature of it.
Maybe. I'm reminded now of a person who practices SE, or at least he's very familiar with SE. He was around from the beginning, like as this sort of grew and developed and evolved. And his goal in his engagements is self-entertainment.
Really?
He gets enjoyment out of asking questions that result in people struggling.
Mm.
It's almost like a trollish kind of approach. But I'm not a fan of that either. I mean, even though he may
Yeah.
find enjoyment, or other people who might agree with him might see what he's doing and find it funny, that he's frustrating his conversation partner
Hmm.
by asking quick questions, and he's boxing them in, and he's pointing out that he's boxing them in, and he's telling them that they just need to be more resolute and dead inside and not let their emotions get in just all this stuff. So like, there are people who are trying to make SE entertaining. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Okay.
But it just I don't know. Goals could be a factor here too,
Yeah. Yeah.
with what's driving some of that.
Yeah. Well, if the goal remains the goal that to critically self-reflect, evaluate the quality of your reason, I think this is certainly um, has been one of my favorite tools to use since I discovered it. Um, I don't know, sometime in the last 5 years, I think. Uh,
Cool.
and I will continue to share this. This doesn't mean I won't stop doing debates. I definitely think, at
Mhm.
least, and I'm thinking in an educational context, right? So, debate is a valuable tool for helping students find their voice. Learning how to deliberate is a useful tool I mean, this is how we got to do our democracy. But sort of if you even step back from all of that, do the work on yourself first to clean the house up, if you will. And I think
Right.
this is a good. I really like the tools that come with SE. If you want to call them tools, I don't know if you would call it something else, but communication practices, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All the above. Yeah, they're great tools, and these are tools that tend to help the practitioner become more epistemically humble about the claims that they make,
Mhm.
and to approach things from a point of curiosity and not get triggered when they encounter somebody who they disagree with, but becoming more curious. And I got to tell you, like, once you learn tools like SE, I feel like, in a way, it lowers your confidence in your own conclusions, but it builds your confidence in your ability to explore people's reasoning about how they arrived at their conclusions.
Yeah.
And that is such a healthy thing. Like, I feel like I've become a more responsible, better person because I have adopted these tools. They're now a part of the way that I navigate the world.
Yeah, I think in my own experience, I think it has helped me even strengthen more my intellectual humility. In other words, being willing to say, "Hey, I'm wrong." Although I would say I was already willing to make that sort of confession before, this really helps strengthen that in a deeper way. And I think and this is one of the challenges too. I had the conversation with some of my students about this. You can't really teach intellectual humility. It's not something that make it a learning objective. The best that I can do is role model it. And then maybe as a practice where you get intellectual humility as a byproduct, teach people that are willing to critically self-reflect, if you will, to be able to stop and pause and go, okay, let me examine this. And if you can do that, you can get to that next step because if intellectual humility is an attitude, you can't teach attitude. You can just role model them, right? But
Mm.
you can, but I think it would be a byproduct of critical self-reflection for anyone that's willing to engage in it.
Yeah. Or at the very least, reminding people that they probably do reflect on some things that are crossing their vision, right? Like they're encountering these ideas, and in many cases we do critically reflect, but we're really good at allowing our biases and our need for group belonging.
Mhm.
Like our psychosocial motivations are huge drivers, and they can impede our ability to critically reflect on certain topics. So sometimes helping a person remember a time where they were critically reflective could have been something about going to the post office. So, like, don't go on this day because they're going to be closed or something, right? Like we're doing this all the time.
Mhm.
Reminding people that of a time maybe where they did change their mind on something that they were so sure is true could also be helpful in encouraging that going forward.
Yeah, that's a good practice. I think with that, Anthony, I think we've had a good conversation, and I'll move to wrap us up here. So thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for joining me. And
absolutely. And thank you for bringing SE to your classroom and to your school.
yeah, for
It's so neat to see SE being talked about in academic settings,
mhm.
because I think that's where it can get a lot of traction and really expand into areas that we can't reach,
Mhm.
you know? That's great.
And I guess I almost forgot, because I like to end my interviews by doing a reversal. Is there any question
Mm.
that you would like to ask me? And if you don't have one,
Have
that's
you received
good.
I do. Have you received any pressure from, and maybe you don't have to answer this either, but, like, has administration ever pressured you to not be doing what you're doing because you're raising questions and deeply held beliefs or anything along those lines? Or are there any topics that maybe you've been told that you shouldn't be exploring or talking about in the classroom?
Nope. Fortunately, I'm at an institution that values free speech. We've adopted the Chicago principles. Uh, I think there's individual actors that undermine it a little bit, but institutionally, we've had controversial speakers on campus, um, and feel largely supported and encouraged to do the work that I'm doing. So,
Excellent.
so thanks for that question, because I know that's not the case everywhere at institutions
Yeah, apparently.
across the United States. I feel
Yeah.
fortunate to be able to do that where I am.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're approaching it really well with your students so that there's not any controversies or, ill will being generated from the stuff that you're doing with your students.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, Anthony. Hopefully,
Okay, Craig. Yeah, thank you very much.
look forward to catching up with you perhaps another time.
Yeah, let's do it again
Yeah.
whenever you wanna.
All right.